keep the eyes closed and let's just take a moment and go inward. Allow the awareness to pull from the world outside to the world inside. Allow that awareness to merge with your breath. Don't try to change your breath, but just allow the awareness to merge with it. So you become fully immersed in the unbroken, continual flow of the breath as you breathe in and breathe out. Draw that awareness of your breath to a place low in your abdomen, just about 2 inches below your belly button. There's a sacred energy center called the Swadhisthana chakra. It's just about 2 inches below the navel. Allow the awareness of your breath to anchor itself here. So you're taking the inhalations from here, and on the exhalations you're dropping back down into this sacred energy center. Just allow yourself to be really aware of the energy flowing in that center. Swadhisthana literally means the place of the self. Swa is self, stan is place. So allow that awareness to expand into the breath as it flows in and out of the seat of the self. On your next inhalation, allow the breath to rise. So we inhale from the Swadhisthana chakra below the navel. And then allow the breath to gently rise. You're not forcing it. It's just gently rising and rising through the energetic body, through the rib cage and lungs, through the throat, and up to the third eye center, just between the two eyebrows, what's called the Agya Chakra. And then we exhale and we allow the breath to again drop back down to that Swadhisthana Chakra. So we're inhaling and allowing that breath to move upward from the Swadhisthana Chakra, about 2 inches below the navel, all the way up through the energetic being until it comes to your third eye, the Agya Chakra. And then you exhale and again let it drop back to the Swadhisthana Chakra. Take these inhalations and exhalations at your own pace, and don't try to force it. It's not about squeezing the breath or suffocating yourself. If you can't carry the breath all the way up to the third eye on one easy and smooth and unbroken inhalation, don't worry. Just take it as high as it goes naturally. And then exhale and let go. And slowly, slowly you'll find the breath is able to rise higher and higher. So take these inhalations and exhalations at your own pace. Rising higher and higher on each inhalation as the breath gets closer to that third eye, and sinking deeper and deeper on each exhalation, dropping deeply into the core of the self. If the mind wanders, just gently bring it back to the breath. As it rises and rises, up to that third eye, that center of true sight. Slowly and gently, bring the palms of your hands together at chest level and rub them gently against each other. Lightly press the palms of your hands into your closed eyes. And slowly lower the hands and open the eyes. Welcome. Welcome to Satsang. Starting as always with a question that comes in advance, and then we'll take any question that anyone here may have. What is the easiest way to create a work-life balance that includes a spiritual practice? The easiest way to do it is to realize that your spiritual practice is important, that you care about it. We've got so much time in our day, even the busiest of us. If you really are honest and you look at every minute of your day, no matter how busy you are, it's all about priorities. So for example, we've all got 24 hours. Let's say you sleep 7. Okay, random number. I know we're supposed to sleep 8 or more, but I also know a lot of people who sleep 6 or less. So on average, we'll say you sleep 7 hours. So that gives you 17 hours left. We bathe, we eat. Even let's say that you do that at a nice leisurely pace. I'm not talking about a sandwich at your desk. Let's take out, good 2 hours of the day, let's say. I know nobody really spends that much time, but let's give it 2 hours of the day for your bathing and eating. It includes also preparing if you've got to do some of that. So you're down to 15 hours in a day. Now, unless you are one of those young, gotta make VP this year, very, very, very ambitious young people who a lot of companies take advantage of and make them work 15-hour days. Other than that, there's there's still a lot of flexible hours. Most people even full time. 8 hours, maybe 9 a day. Point being, we've got time. Now we have families, many of us. Time with children, time with spouses, time with parents. There may be commute time, you want to read. There's a lot of different things we fit into our day, exercise. But I can guarantee you that every one of us has at least 30 minutes a day of what you could call kind of disposable time. Meaning the time that isn't spent doing something that you really couldn't stop doing. It's not your bathing, eating time. It's not the time you have to be working. It's not the time that you're putting your kids to sleep or with the kids. It's the time that you're, kind of futzing around the house, not really accomplishing anything, but sort of moving some things around. It's the time you're scrolling on social media. It's the time you're doing all the things that we do that you think, where did that time go? Like it was just an hour earlier. Where did this hour just go? I didn't actually do anything in the last hour. How did it become an hour later? And you try to figure out what you've actually done in the last hour. Maybe you made a phone call. Maybe you putzed around the house a little bit. Little things. Checked some emails, checked some social media, compared some prices on Amazon, downloaded a song that someone recommended. I'm not saying we're out, stealing, robbing, raping, doing horrible things, but it's not time spent criminally. It's just time that hasn't been necessarily spent in a way that's enriching. Now again, nothing wrong with that. Unless you say, I have no time for a spiritual practice. For those who say, I have no time for a spiritual practice, you are the ones who need to really look at how you are spending every moment. But most of us are able to realize that, we could pretty easily squeeze in, say, half an hour a day. 15-ish minutes in the morning, 15-ish minutes in the evening. Start with just 15 minutes a day. Choose morning or evening, add another 15 minutes. If it means laundry doesn't get done till tomorrow, okay. It happens sometimes. If it means that you happen to go to sleep with dishes in the sink, it happens sometimes. Things have to give sometimes. Some of us have a lot of extra time. But I'm speaking to those who say, I have no time. If you have time, make the time. Then it's easy. But if you think you don't, look at actually how you spend every half hour of your life. Set a little alarm on your phone to just beep every 30 minutes. And when it beeps, just write down what you're doing. What are you doing? It's actually very interesting. Just let it beep every half an hour and just note down, what are you doing? Do that for a week. And at the end of the week, go back and look at that. How many times did it beep while you were doing something that in retrospect you think, I probably didn't have to be doing that? And by the way, this is a great way to not only make sure that we can put our spiritual practice into our daily schedule, but it also makes us realize how we can schedule what we would call downtime. Because everybody needs on some level some time of the day that is unstructured, that is a rest for the body and the mind. And whether it's a walk you take, whether it's sitting on the banks of Ganga, whether it's just sitting and being, whether it's cuddling with a child or a loved one or a pet or whatever, whether it's drawing or making music, listening to music, looking at art, whatever it may be. The dilemma is that the vast majority of people also think they have no time for that. But what happens is when our brains are overloaded, they grab for a break. The problem is they grab for it in a way that doesn't actually replenish it. That's when you are aimlessly scrolling social media or clicking through a variety of news sites. I always know that I need to get out and take a walk if I find that I've clicked on some news article because it seemed important, and then 15, 20 minutes later I'm reading about, some random person or random animal in some random city or country of the world, or somebody I have no idea who they are, and you think, how did I end up here? And that's when you realize, well, my brain went on autopilot for the last 15, 20 minutes because it needed a break. But I'm not actually any more refreshed after reading junk news. Click here, click on this. Oh, this, But it's a beautiful signal. My brain needs a break. So I found that the minute I find myself clicking on one of those news articles, that I take a step back and I ask myself, do I actually need this news? Is this really important news, or is this just my brain saying, could we stop doing what we're doing right now for a little while? And if it's that, to actually give it what it needs. To go take a walk, to go sit on the banks of Ganga, to sit on my couch and meditate, to listen to chanting, to do something that 15 minutes later you are actually rejuvenated and refreshed, rather than just having lost the time. So I found over and over again that we do have the time. We just don't realize it. So set one of these alarms every half an hour and just do it for a week. Your life is made up of the minutes of your day. And so it's really helpful to know how you spend those minutes of your day. And in terms of adding in the time for your spiritual practice, in addition to your morning and evening 15 minute, you'll find probably as the days go by that you're able, willing, and excited to extend both of them. That you actually want to sit for longer than 15 minutes at a stretch. And then you start automatically making the time to do that. If it means getting up a little earlier, if it means changing a little bit about how the rest of your day is going to go, or how your day starts, or your morning routine, you start figuring it out because it starts to matter to you. It starts to be something that you actively make time for because you care. I know for me, for example, I'm a very strict vegetarian, very strict vegan when I'm anywhere other than this ashram. And I'm also a relatively healthy eater, which means when I travel in the world, if I'm traveling, not staying in people's houses for a spiritual program, but if I'm at a conference, a summit, a big event, staying in a hotel, I have to put time and energy into figuring out how for the next 2 or 3 days I'm actually going to be able to eat. Put in a little bit of time. Is there a vegan restaurant nearby? What's nearby where I can actually eat something and actually feel nourished by it? And it always takes a little bit of time. I usually end up spending about 20, 25 minutes, sometimes half an hour, trying to figure out what's around me. What's around the hotel? Does anybody deliver? Is there a smoothie place that'll deliver nearby? You don't have a car. You're in the middle of things all day long. Is there a salad place that will deliver? Does somebody make vegetable soup nearby that they would deliver? But it's important to me. And so whether it's something I do on the airplane before landing, or on my phone in the car from the airport into the city, or when I get there, you make time for it. Because I know I've got to eat something. And so in the same way, your spiritual practice becomes that which nourishes you. And just like you're going to make sure that the body has food, you're going to start to make time to really make sure that you're nourished deeply. And automatically you'll start making time for it because of how deeply it nourishes you. The other thing you're going to discover is that it's not just a matter of how much time you have in the morning and the evening, but your whole way of moving through your day is different. You start to look for opportunities all day long in people you meet, in situations you're in, of how can I bring my spiritual practice into this moment? And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful blossoming of a yearning inside that's like, how can this moment be more spiritual? Do you find yourself sitting with people, gossiping, chatting about things that don't matter at all? But you like the people. You want to be with them. It's just your time together has started to feel a little bit like not so nourishing. So you find yourself as you sit together saying something like, hey, what do you think if we all meditated? Like maybe instead of having this conversation, we could all just close our eyes and meditate. And you start to look for opportunities to bring spirituality into your life. Maybe it's you gather with friends for a meal, but hey, can we take a few minutes before the meal? Let's hold hands. Let's say a blessing before this meal. Little things. You'll start to weave them into your daily life. As you're walking from your parking spot to the office, can you use that time to recite your mantra? Or to be listening to mantras if you don't know any? Can you use that time to practice being mindful and aware of your breath, of your feet upon the earth? You'll discover ways all day long to weave in your spiritual practice into your day. And then it's not only the morning and the evening, those will be like anchor points, bookends. But you'll actually be able to have it all throughout the day. But it just has to be a priority. And then you'll make time. Beautiful. Other questions? Yes.
Sadhviji, is it possible to know when you are here at the ashram, what's your diet, what do you eat? And who cooks the food here? Do you cook yourself or other people cook? Or on top of that, I want to know what Swamis and other students, I see them, they are very active all day, like you or anybody else, I want to know what they want, what they eat.
What do we eat? What's the secret?
I mean,
No, it's a great question, and it's funny because sometimes you see kids who run around like these huge balls of energy, and you think, I want whatever he had for breakfast. And of course, half the time it's Fruit Loops, so it's not really something you want to emulate. But it's a beautiful question, I understand that. So my diet is really simple, and I'm happy to share it with you, but I want to just mention I've worked out a way to eat that works very well for my body and my schedule. I'm not by any means in any way saying to people, this is the way I think you all should do it. Everybody has to listen to their own body, of what their body needs and how they need it. But over my almost 52 years of life, I've worked out what works well for me. So I eat 2 meals a day. I eat a late, heavy breakfast that consists of fruit, nuts, and some kind of healthy, hot thing. Usually it's lentils or chana. It's usually something very similar to what you would get at lunch or dinner. Mung beans or chana, but just very, very simple. So in the same way that at lunch or dinner they would cook it with spices and tomatoes and whatnot, in the morning I usually get it just boiled. So it's just boiled chana or boiled mung beans, a little bit of salt, a little bit of lemon, but a nice size bowl of that. A cup of milk that comes from the cows in our Goshala. I don't drink milk anywhere else in the world, but here the cows are members of our family, and after their babies drink, they lovingly offer us what's left, and so I drink that I mix with some coffee that I brew up, and that's breakfast. And then I eat dinner, lunch dinner, around 4:35. And it's a very typical Indian meal. Vegetables, dal, chapati, yogurt. Mostly all cooked, sometimes some raw cucumbers or something, but looks like a very, very typical Indian thali. But cooked very, very simply. I don't eat a lot of spices. That's my diet. I've been told that I should eat some more protein. Sometimes I have a protein bar in the middle of the day if I remember and feel hungry enough, but so that's my whole diet. And the Rishi Kumars, they get 3 meals a day. They're growing young boys. Most people eat 3 meals a day. I do 2 really just logistically because I don't like eating late at night. And between Arti and Satsang and meeting people, it just became too logistically difficult to squeeze dinner in also before it got late. And it just became so much easier to be done with food before Arti and not even to have to worry about it. And everybody else eats 3 meals, but very, very similar. Lentils and vegetables and chapati. I think they eat rice also. I don't usually eat rice. They get sweets. I don't eat sweets. very, very simply, what's really important is everything here is fresh. There's no leftovers, there's no Tupperware, there's no microwave, there's no sense of cooking on Sundays for the week. And it's a luxury. It's a luxury of having people in service who are cooking for you. If I were cooking, I couldn't do this. But we have beautiful, beautiful, devoted souls in Seva who cook for us. So it's a beautiful luxury to always have food that is freshly cooked, grown locally, mostly organic. This is an area where things are mostly organic, and it's fresh, and it's cooked fresh, and it's cooked with love. Yeah. Other questions? Yes.
Hello. My question is, how do you deal when you're outside the ashram? I think here it's a very peaceful place, but when you go out, it's very loud, very noisy, a lot of pollution. Yeah. A lot of hotels have been built also. A lot of nature is not there anymore, which has been here before, I heard. And how do you deal with it when things like this come to your mind and you see it, and yeah.
Yeah, so how do you move through the world that isn't the peaceful ashram? In India, the cow is considered sacred. Now, the cow is considered sacred for beautiful scriptural reasons, the idea that the cow gives us so much with just love. But on a personal level, I actually celebrate and love the cow, not so much for the scriptural reasons, but for the reason in answer to your question. Because cows are very intelligent beings. They're not stupid at all. They're not dull or dense at all. They're very, very smart. And yet, as you may have noticed, these cows are able to exist in the middle of busy roads, not just busy Rishikesh, but busy Delhi, sitting, napping, meditating, doing whatever the cows do, in the middle of cars, honking their horns. And you think, how is that possible? And so for me, every time I see one of those cows, I think, just bless me with this much of what you have. I don't need to sleep in traffic, but at least bless me with the ability to cross the road without my sympathetic nervous system going into overload. So yeah, the world is loud, the world is polluted, the world is chaotic, and yet our spiritual practice ultimately is not about how can we get out of the world. It's about how can we change the inner world so that we're not so impacted by the outer world. How can we become, as Pujya Swamiji says, noiseless amidst the noise? That it's not about quieting the world or moving through the world with earplugs in, but how can you find an inner noiselessness into which you can dive, even in the midst of the noise of the world? Because what a lot of us know anybody who's ever gone to a silent mountain meditation retreat knows is even when everything's quiet outside, it's really loud in here. Otherwise, everybody would emerge from a silent meditation retreat enlightened. Right? But no matter how quiet it is outside, the noise is on inside. And so the teaching and the goal is how to become noiseless on the inside so that wherever you are on the outside, you are able to be in noiselessness, in stillness, in peace. How to find that peace within so that even when you're in the chaos outside, you're in peace. I think about it like a wetsuit. It's my favorite way of thinking about it. Anybody here scuba dive or surf or anything that requires you to wear a wetsuit? Raise your hand if anybody's ever. Okay, great. Good number. So, I never have, but I love knowing how it works. Those of us who have never been inside a wetsuit think that the way it works is it keeps you dry. Right? These people put it on and they go in and they're dry. But it doesn't, right? You're all shaking your heads. It doesn't. The way that it works is really brilliant. It allows like this much water in. And your body heat warms that water. Then you go in the deep ocean, which is cold. But you are existing in a little pocket of warm water that you have created. And I think about it like that spiritually. Can you, in your meditation, in your prayers, in your yoga, in your spiritual life, create a wetsuit effect in which, regardless of what's going on around you, you are existing in an energetic world of love and peace that you've created. You are an energetic transmitter. You're a receiver also, but you're a transmitter also. And so can you, before going into those chaotic, polluted, crowded, conflicted situations, very consciously, I have my zip up the wetsuit days. You finish your morning meditation, and it's one of those days of zipping on the wetsuit, of literally exuding from your heart this love, this peace into your energetic field. And I'm a visual person, so I really think about like zipping up a wetsuit. And then you go out into the world. But you know that you are encased in this warm world of peace, of love, of stillness. And it doesn't mean that we don't try to share that with the world. We do, but when you go surfing, you're not fixated on warming the ocean. You're fixated on making it through your expedition without freezing to death. If you're also able to share some of that warmness with the world around you, beautiful. But the first order of business is make sure that that cold water doesn't come in and freeze you to death. So in the same way, when you move through the world, ideally, we should be sharing and spreading and exuding and transmitting as much love and as much peace as we can. But first we need enough to keep ourselves anchored and grounded. And only then can we actually share it with the world. And so I really consciously think about times and places and situations where you're transmitting energy and times when you're receiving. So you go into the Ganga Arati, for example. You sit on the banks of Ganga. You walk in the mountains. You're meditating. It's a time of receiving energy. You're just receiving and receiving and receiving. Like you're bathing in a warm ocean. Like just fill me up. And then you go out into a crowded, polluted, angry, conflicted world. And you focus on transmitting. You really consciously turn on that transmission. And if you feel like there's enough to transmit to, all beautiful. But even if not, at least make sure that you've transmitted into your own spiritual wetsuit, so that you don't take in that cold water. And then you keep coming back into places where you can receive. Because you've got to make sure to have those as well. So you make sure to work them into your life, whether it's just a tree in the park down your block, which you go and hug on your way to work every day and on your way back from work every day. Whether it's more of a retreat you can go on, whatever it may be. But you make sure to have times where you're able to just receive. Other questions? Yes. Karuna, sweetie? Mike? Thanks, love. Right here.
Swamiji, it's so wonderful to hear that veganism is important to you outside of the ashram. I know it's important to many of the members of our group also. I just wondered if you thought maybe, since it's not ethical for the rest of the world...
Can you just hold it?
Sure,
That's
yeah.
Okay, thank
to
you.
consume it ethically in the rest of the world. Do you think veganism is something that could be shared with ashrams in the future?
So, yes, I think veganism is absolutely the way to go. I think the more people who know about it, who embrace it, it's something I speak about a lot. It's a challenge in India because of this sense that milk is nectar. But what I have found is that if you can help people understand, because what people in India don't realize, they can't even conceive of it because they love the cow in their heart, and they can't even conceive of the violence that is wrought on the cow, aside from all of the other impacts of it. And if you can help people see that, for which of course there's lots of evidence, people turn vegan. Now, in the West, much more so than here, although it's growing here because wherever anything becomes industrial and commercial, violence and corruption seeps in. But in the West, what you've got much more of is this interlinkage between the dairy companies and the meat companies. Dairy cows give birth. Their babies become beef. So for people who are vegetarian but not vegan, in the West, their dairy consumption is quite literally feeding the meat industry. The two industries are interlinked. So even for people who don't necessarily think that milk itself is violence, which all you've got to do is see a YouTube video on what it's actually like in these dairy farms and you'll realize it is violence. Well, the meat is obviously violence. A lot of people have this idea that somehow dairy farms are, peaceful, beautiful places where the baby cows get to grow up, and they're not. The baby cows are put on conveyor belts and sent off to become veal or beef. So yeah, it's an act of violence. It's something that I speak about a lot here, that I speak about a lot abroad, especially to Indian audiences abroad who are already moral and ethical vegetarians, but who have never even thought of what the dairy industry is doing. So yes, I agree with you fully. It's a critical thing to talk about, and it's really an element of conscious living and of making decisions of what am I going to do with my income, my dollars, my rupees, my euros. Whose pocket am I going to put them in? Whose company am I going to support? Who's going to get rich on my hard-earned money? And whether it's the food I eat, whether it's the clothing I wear, what it's made of, what company it's from, is it organic, is it not? Is it fair trade, is it not? Whether it's the coffee I drink, the dark chocolate I eat. I mean, so much of the things we buy, even that may be vegan, organic, if they're not also fair trade, they're not necessarily in service of nonviolence. So I find it, a lot of people get overwhelmed by it and feel like, oh my God, this is too much. Whereas for me, it's really such an extraordinarily beautiful opportunity to live a spiritual life all day long. To actually make your shopping trip a spiritual experience. Part of your spiritual practice. Reading the ingredients on the bottles of shampoo. It's not, I have to shop quickly so I can get home to meditate. It's maybe making sure that the shampoo I buy doesn't bring harm to anybody on the planet or any animals on the planet or our indigenous sisters and brothers in the Amazon. Maybe that's also a form of meditation. Maybe shopping slowly enough to make sure that my impact on the world is nonviolent and peaceful. Maybe that can also be what I consider my sadhana. So it's not, I couldn't do sadhana today because I spent all day reading labels in the grocery store. But can I see that as sadhana? Can I go through 25 different brands of coffee until I find the one that's fair trade? And if my grocery store doesn't have it, can I spend 10 minutes online finding a place that does? So that I can be sure that this morning thing I love to drink isn't being harvested by people who are working as slave labor in some third world country. That the clothes that I wear, the cotton that I wear, isn't being put together by kids in a sweatshop somewhere or women in a sweatshop somewhere. One of the great benefits of the internet is this information is all now available. It's no longer a matter of I don't know. Everything you want these days, from shoes to belts to clothes to undergarments to shampoo, I mean, whatever you buy, you can actually buy it in ways that are organic, that are fair trade, and yeah, they tend to cost a little bit more, which means we buy fewer things. It's also better for the environment, better for our pocketbooks, so it's a way of bringing our spiritual practice into every minute and every moment of our life. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. And there was another question. Yes, last. Yeah.
Hi. Can you hear me? Okay. I have a question related to the one you started with. As a really non-linear thinker, a neurodivergent human that is new to meditation, do you have advice on not being consumed by guilt for not being able to get something right away, or the process of it as a practice not being, I realize that's the whole point, but
Yeah, isn't it sad? And so common. So common. I know I've gone through it. I know so many of the people I talk to have gone through this. We embark on a spiritual practice only to bring our neuroses and issues into our spiritual practice. So we suffer feelings of guilt, shame, not enoughness, self-hatred. We then decide we're going to start meditating. We go to meditate and the mind says, see, you can't even do this. You're the worst meditator ever. You read that Bhagavad Gita, you don't remember a thing that was in it. You'll never make it. Look at that. A thought of jealousy. Here you are chanting a mantra. And look at this. You had a thought of jealousy. See, you are useless. You're not even good for a spiritual practice. Everybody else in this room is meditating. What's wrong with you? Right? Yeah. So it's so sad and yet so just there that this is what happens. And there isn't really any way to get over it other than simply to acknowledge it, look at it, smile at it, and keep going. It's like you walk out of your apartment, you're walking to yoga class because you've decided you're going to take yoga every day, or you're walking to a meditation class. And there's a kid on the side of the road, a neighbor's kid. Means well, but he or she is young and clearly disturbed, not raised by enlightened parents. And as you're walking to yoga, inevitably that kid is sitting out on the steps waiting for you to come out of your apartment. You walk out, and every day that kid chases you down the street, pulling on your clothes, just annoying you the whole way to your class. Where are you going? What are you doing? You're fat. Why are you wearing those clothes? They look really bad on you. Why do you do yoga? And the kid just keeps annoying you the whole way. Now, you're not going to stop going to yoga just because this kid is there. You're also not going to believe what the kid says. You're not going to start feeling horribly about yourself because some 6 or 7-year-old kid who clearly has a lot of issues tells you these things. But you're also not going to murder the kid. Right? You're going to be able to look at this child, understand that the child is a product of an unhealthy home environment. There's a reason the kid is always outside. There's a reason the kid is harassing the neighbors. There's a reason the kid is negative all the time. There's a reason the kid is looking for attention. There's a reason the kid can't think of a nice thing to say. You understand. It's a troubled child. You're not going to kill it. You're not going to call it names. You're not going to start to walk with a stick and beat its hands off your clothes. But you're also not going to let it get you off your path. You're going to keep walking. And if the child is still there, well, that's all right. So the child comes with you to the door of the yoga class. Okay. You may start turning to the child. I see you. I see you. I'm not going to beat you like your parents beat you. I see you. But I'm also not going to let you ruin my day. I see you. Smile at the kid. He doesn't mean to harm you. It's just doing all he knows how to do. And that's what the voices inside our own heads are like. They're essentially troubled children. That's when they came into being. That's how they were created. Any voice in your head who tells you anything negative about yourself or holds you back in any way is some aspect of the troubled child in you, something that you adopted at a young age. Don't try to kill it, but don't let it run your life. Just think of it as this troubled neighbor's kid who lives a little too close. But when you don't get riled up, when you don't give in to the temptation to beat it or to let it ruin your day or run your life, he calms down. He could even become a friend. Walk with you in silence. Maybe you could start teaching him yoga. Right? I mean, once he has stopped trying to taunt you because he realizes it's not going to work, then everything is possible. The problem for us is when that voice comes, we give it what it wants. We give in to the shame. We give in to the guilt. We give in to these bad feelings about ourselves. We stop meditating. We stop doing yoga. Forget it, I'm not going to go to yoga because I can't stand to see that kid. We give in. And so it wins. Don't give in. Try to befriend it. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you telling me I'm worthless and useless. But you know what? I don't believe you. But I'll smile at you. I'm not going to beat you or kill you. I just don't believe you. I know that what you're saying isn't true, so I'm not going to let it run my life. but I see you. And then you keep walking. Beautiful. Are you here tomorrow? That's all right. Well, then we'll take it quickly. Yes.
I understand that you've been a spiritual practitioner for about 30 years, give or take. What was your tapasya like, or your sadhana like, and when did your wetsuit start giving?
For the longer answer, the fuller answer, get a copy of my memoir that was just published. Because that was actually why I wrote it, was to share the fullness of the journey, that there never really is time to share in these sorts of gatherings. The fullness of the sadhana, the fullness of the journey, the darkness to light, pain to healing. What I can tell you in short was I had no sadhana on any kind of official level that we would deem sadhana before coming to India, which is why I always say grace is there for everyone. I was given the experiences that I was given without ever having meditated or done japa or prayed or anything that you would categorize as an official spiritual practice. I didn't know any mantras. I came in as a 25-year-old PhD student with a backpack from a Jewish family. So I had done none of that sadhana. That being said, I had done a lot of personal psychological introspection and work. I had gone through a lot of struggles and challenges, trauma in my childhood, in my adolescence, that had really sent me deep inside. I hadn't healed. I was managing it, which is what I thought was the highest goal. Nobody had ever told me you actually could be free. So I definitely was deep and introspective and very, very courageous at looking at what you could call my demons, my darkness. But I had never done any spiritual sadhana. I had just gone into the depths of this psyche. But the willingness to open myself to the teachings, the grace, the power, the instructions, I think enabled me to tap into that power of transformation that is here. I was very open and very willing to absorb. So that's the part that I feel the most grateful for, was my openness to it. The rest was grace of God, grace of the Guru, grace of Ganga, grace of the divine universe. Yeah. There's been, by the way, a lot of sadhana since then. It's important to realize that transformation is not, at least for me, was not a sort of one-off thing. Oh, now you're done. It's not like a piece of toast. It's now done. You keep doing it. And you keep doing it, and you keep doing it, and you keep going deeper, and you keep peeling back layers, and you keep seeing more and more aspects of the self that are blocking you from truth. And then you look at them, and then you peel them back. And then you go deeper. So it's a continual process. 26 plus years into it all. I'll keep you posted, but for the moment, it's a continuing process. Yeah, of course. Beautiful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening, everyone. And so much love to you all.